Welcome back everybody to another Nano Reef Freak video today. We're going to talk about all the frozen foods that I feed to my aquarium fish here. Let's get right into it. The first two frozen foods that I do not recommend are going to be regular brine shrimp. There's an exception to this rule later on in the video. And bloodworms and other freshwater fish food. Bloodworms, beef hearts, things like this, saltwater fish, do not eat. I have seen some people recommend bloodworms for like finicky fish or fish that are sick, and it just doesn't work. I've personally tried it, and I can rest assured that it does not work. At least in every single time that I have tried it, it has not been successful. Moving up in the hierarchy of frozen food, one of my favorites is actually this Prime Reef frozen food by Ocean Nutrition. So this is a frozen food that doesn't use gels or any kind of like binding agents. It is literally a no-thaw frozen food. You take the cube out, you break it into like 3 or 4 pieces and you give it to your fish, and it starts to de-thaw in like a minute or two just on its own, not even having to put it in water. This works great in frozen feeding cups. Like if you have a lid like mine that has a cup in the polycarbonate lid, this stuff's amazing. It's also really easy to separate into sections because since it's not totally frozen with all those gel binders, you don't have to wait for it to get soft. It's already kind of pliable. Like even right out of the freezer, I can actually kind of squish it just a little bit. Another frozen food that I've recently discovered is P.E. calanus. This is actually a really good small food for some of your more finicky fish. Think of like your clown gobies, maybe your neon gobies. These calanus are like really, really little tiny, almost like copepods. And I think they are a type of, copepod zooplankton. So they're really great for all your little tiny eaters that are maybe a little finicky, and they're nice and red. So if you take a look at these, they're nice and red, and they are frozen with a binder, so you do have to de-thaw them quite a bit. But you can put them in a turkey baster and feed them to any fish that are nice and finicky, and this has worked great for me. And it seems to be a pretty good food. Now, the one downside of P.E. calanus, the crude protein on this is only 12%. So on a pellet or a flake food, protein can be as high as 40 to 50%. On this food being only 12%, it's just a little bit above brine shrimp, and it's really meant to get your finicky eaters eating and then move them over to another frozen food. So you could maybe mix this with some mysis shrimp or mix this with some other foods to get them to accept this, and hopefully the other foods you can move away from them. With that said, it should also be noted that the Prime Reef here only has a crude protein of 7.9%. So again, this is another fish food that, while it's great, really easy to feed, it's not the most nutritious thing out there in the world, and this one is made out of mussels, plankton, mysis shrimp, squid, salmon eggs, a lot of good stuff, but there is just not a ton of protein packed per, square inch of this stuff, so to speak. So just keep an eye out for that. For anybody that was curious as well, the bottom of the barrel as far as crude protein is 4% for brine shrimp, which is almost nothing. This really has no nutritional benefit. Yesterday I was over at Worldwide Corals, and they showed me a new frozen food from Hikari that I hadn't seen before. So these are gut-loaded frozen foods. This is spirulina brine shrimp, and this one here is omega-enriched brine shrimp. So they're both brine shrimp, both on that lower end of the crude protein scale, but since they're gut-loaded, they do have a lot of omega-3s, a lot of fatty acids, a lot of healthy bits in there for your new fish that might be finicky eaters. So this is actually what I have here in this frozen cup. So what this is, just a little Rubbermaid from Target that you can get. These are for salad dressings normally, and I think it was like $7 and you got like 4 of them. So a little pricey, but they work great for Nano Reefs because this is only 2 tablespoons. So you can put 2 cubes of frozen food in there, a little bit of RODI water, and you still have a little bit of room to spare. So 1 cube of each of these is in there. We're gonna go ahead and feed it to our fish here in a second and see how much they like it. Now, funnily enough, the best food that I was gonna recommend is P.E. mysis shrimp, which I just ran out of literally a couple days ago and forgot to buy at Worldwide Corals. So that's my fault. I really wanted to pick up another pack or 2 of that stuff because we go through it here like wildfire. I go through like a cube a week of mysis shrimp between all 4 of my tanks. So 1 pack will last me about a month. Usually it comes with about 30 cubes depending on the brand. As for mysis shrimp being frozen, P.E. mysis is a brand of mysis shrimp. They can be a little bit larger, but they are the highest quality that I have seen. There is also the San Francisco Bay, I think is the other brand. You can get it at like Petco's and other fish stores. That one's not as good. It has a lot more phosphates in it. It has a lot more like a milky texture when you melt it down, or not melt it down, we're not like putting this in a volcano, but when you de-thaw it, it has a little bit more of a milky texture to it. Whereas these higher quality foods, especially those from Hikari, when you de-thaw these, it is just like a light green liquid because the omega-3s and the gut-loaded brine shrimp and stuff in here. So let's go ahead and get this in the tank, see if we can get these new fish that we have eating. We do have a chalk basslet in here now, and he is actually in this frag rack hiding in there. That's kind of like his little castle, but he is really skittish, really scared, so hopefully he accepts this stuff. This is what Worldwide Coral said they were feeding their new fish that they got into the store, so I'm hoping that my fish like it here just as much as they did there. I can see the chalk bass is eating in the reflection of the glass on the bottom right. That's good. It seems like this fish food is really packed with a lot of brine shrimp, so I may have put just a little bit too much in there actually. There's a chalk bass on the bottom right. You see him? He's coming out now. It's kind of hard to see him because the lights are blue. I kind of left it that way intentionally to help him feel a little bit more comfortable. But he's over there in the bottom right next to the wild berry chalice, which we'll talk about soon. And soon in another video, not this one, just so everybody is aware. But man, look at the azure damsel in the bottom, or the top left. He is just beautiful. He's just so blue. If I see the chalk basslet come out again, I'll try and get the camera to focus on him. But man, that azure damsel is gorgeous. Oh, everybody gets a little skittish sometimes. And there we go. The pumps are now back on, so all that food is going to start kicking up. Any of that unwanted food that they didn't eat there. There it goes. That's how much food that I put in the tank was extra, so that's my bad. See, even people that have been reefing for a long time make mistakes like that. It's really easy to make a simple mistake like putting too much food in there. So, good way to solve this problem. If you have filter floss, go ahead and throw it in your chambers real quick in the rear, and it'll catch all the frozen food. About 20-30 minutes later, you can go and dump that filter floss or just rinse it off if it's clean enough otherwise. And then that way, all that food won't decompose in your tank. We'll see if that chalk basslet comes out for us one more time. Hopefully he comes out for us here in a second. I think he's still in that bottom right corner. I have not seen him stray too far away from his frag plug kingdom, as I like to call it. He does also like to hide underneath that brain coral though, which is pretty cute. Yeah, I don't think our chalk basslet friend is gonna come out for us anytime soon. I think he's still too new and too skittish. That's fine though. Tank's looking beautiful otherwise. A really nice thing about using these frozen food containers like this is that when you're done feeding your tank, you should put the cap on, close it up. Now, a good thing to touch on is how long you can keep your frozen food once it's de-thawed. Some websites, like Bulk Reef Supply, advise 24 to 48 hours once de-thawed, and if not fed within that 24 to 48 hours, that you throw out that frozen food and then de-thaw new frozen food, which I agree with. I think it's a great idea to not let your frozen food thaw for more than 48 hours. I feel like once it de-thaws for more than 48 hours, you're getting a little risky with decomposition of the food. So with frozen food, I would say it's best if you can de-thaw it the day you feed it. That's what I try and do all the time. If you want to de-thaw it a day ahead of time, I don't think it's going to kill anything or hurt anything. Now, if you go more than 2 days, I think you are at risk for decomposition and higher phosphates in that food just becoming bad in general and becoming spoiled. And then the fish may not eat it and you're just dumping in nitrates and phosphates into your tank unnecessarily. So definitely keep that in mind when you're storing your frozen food. My favorite thing about this though, not only can you store this overnight for the next day if you need to, you can also refreeze it, which I've found that if you refreeze the food, usually maybe refreeze it once and then use it again and that's it. If you refreeze it more than once, I think it's just not very good for the frozen food, especially if you're using a fridge like mine, you don't have an industrial freezer, right? Now with this though, I have 4 tanks. So putting this lid on here and walking to another tank and knowing I'm not going to spill a single drop of this frozen food is a lifesaver. I cannot tell you how many times I've had frozen food in something like a Pyrex measuring cup. All of a sudden you knock that bad boy over and there's frozen food all over the tank or the desk or the kitchen counter. Hopefully not the kitchen counter because you'll really piss off your wife. But I also, not speaking from experience here, but if you take your frozen food and put it in this, there's no risk that you're going to spill this on the hood of your aquarium or on any surface inside your house. As for foods outside of frozen foods, if you guys have stayed this long, here's some foods that I also recommend. So PE mysis does make a PE mysis pellet, which I do feed my fish. Here's the PE mysis pellets right here. These things are amazing. So crude protein on this bad boy, 48%. These pellets are supposedly supposed to be 1 millimeter pellets. They're more like 2 millimeters. You do have to crush them up with your fingers quite a bit to get your smaller fish to eat them, like your damsels and things like that. But if you have some larger fish, maybe some fully grown clownfish, these are no problem, and they're fantastic. Really, really good food. Some other food that I recommend that's not frozen is the Ocean Nutrition Prime Reef Flake. Now I know flake foods are not the best food for your reef tank, but In comparison to other flake foods on the market, I feel like the Ocean Nutrition Prime Reef Flakes have really good nutritional value. Not as good as this PE Mysis pellet though. So just keep that in mind. The hierarchy kind of goes flake food, pellet food, frozen food, and then within frozen food, you go from brine shrimp to something like gut-enriched brine shrimp, maybe throw calanus somewhere in between there, and then up to Mysis shrimp. And Mysis shrimp are going to have the highest crude protein of any of the frozen foods for you. That's it for today's video, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe if you can. We're trying to grow the channel, and we have a really good series coming up in October about a series of videos for an Eschop's Deskmate Florida, which is a 9-gallon orange acrylic tank. We're going to do a great video on that, well, a great series of videos actually. So stay tuned for October, and yeah, I'm excited to share with you guys what we come up with here.